If you look at a map of the world, you will notice that each continent is separate from the other. The continent of Australia, for example, lies in the southern hemisphere. Antarctica is located at the southern end of the planet, and Africa is separated from the surrounding continents by the Red Sea to the east and the White Sea to the north. North and South America, although on the surface they appear to be connected to each other, in reality, they are separated by dozens of rivers and bodies of water in the Central American region, such as the Atrato River in Colombia and its branches, as well as the Panama Canal. Therefore, each continent is separate from the other. Accordingly, we can call it a continent, but the issue is different for the continents of Asia and Europe. There is nothing separating the two continents, no sea, ocean, or anything. The two continents are connected to each other as if they were one mass. Despite this, we find people who tell you that this is the continent of Asia and this is the continent of Europe. Why do Asia and Europe remain two different continents despite their closeness to each other? But first, welcome to this video from one of the Curious Knights. Before we answer our question, we first need to know what is the meaning of continent. The word continent is a very conventional word with many meanings. If you type in Google, "What is the continent?" the answer is it is any of several large geographical regions. How big is it? What are its specifications? Where are its geographical borders? There is no answer. Accordingly, a large group of classifications began to appear. In these classifications, each group of people is classified according to their mood. Since ancient times, the Indians, for example, believed that they lived on a continent called Greater India, and they used to draw maps to imagine the world in this way. The same thing applies to the Greeks. The Greek historian Herodotus, in the 5th century BC, described Greece and its environs as the continent of Europe. The land next to it, which lies east of the Rhine River, is called the continent of Asia. Since the Europeans currently follow the culture of Greece, they adopted exactly the same principle in order to distinguish themselves and said, "We are the continent of Europe, and we are a continent on our own, and all the lands to the east are another continent called Asia." The proof is that we have different cultures, customs, religions, and facial features. If you are still not convinced, there is a mountain chain called the Ural Mountains that extends in length for about 2,400 kilometers. This mountain range is the separation between Europe and Asia, and any land to the right of the mountains belongs to the continent of Asia, and any land to the north of it belongs to the continent of Europe. Are what Europeans said throughout history true? The answer is definitely no. The logic behind the mountain range that they say divides the continent into two continents is a huge fallacy. Looking at the mountain ranges in the world, we will find, for example, that the third largest mountain range in the world in terms of extent is the Rocky Mountains, which extend 4,800 kilometers. These mountains divide North America into two parts, but despite that, no one has said that the North American continent is two continents, a continent north of the mountains and a continent south of the mountains, as was said in Europe about the Ural Mountain Range, and this is proof that the mountain ranges are not responsible for dividing the continents. As for cultures, religions, and languages, the African continent has hundreds of cultures and colors and hundreds of languages and religions, and there is a huge disparity between the peoples of Africa, so cultural and ethnic differences are not the reason for dividing the continents. So far, Europe and Asia are supposed to remain one continent, not two continents. This is what many geographers adopt and call it the continent of Eurasia. There is another division of continents, which is based on the dividing bodies of water. This division says that the continent is a large land mass separated from the lands around it by huge bodies of water. Therefore, according to the division of water bodies, Europe and Asia are one continent because there are no large bodies of water separating them from each other. In the same division of water bodies, there is another opinion that in order for a continent to be a continent, it must be separated from its neighbors by natural bodies of water. Accordingly, this opinion considers that North America and South America are both one continent. This is because the Panama Canal, which separates them from each other, is a human-made body of water, not a natural canal. According to this perspective, Africa is not a separate continent because the Suez Canal is also man-made. Therefore, Europe, Asia, and Africa, in these three groups, are one continent called the continent of Afro-Eurasia. There is another division of continents, which is the geological division. This division is based on the tectonic plates found in the Earth's crust. These tectonic plates are plates found in the layers of the Earth's crust with tectonic breaks between them. The movement of these tectonic faults is what causes earthquakes, volcanoes, etc. If we take a look at the tectonic plates on Earth, we will find them in this form. And based on this division, India is supposed to be considered a single continent, and this is because it is located on a separate tectonic plate, which is the Indian plate. According to this division, the world is divided into about 12 continents, but in this same division, Europe and Asia are one continent. This is because they are both located on the same tectonic plate. So, whatever the division, Europe and Asia are the same continent. This means that all evidence says that Europe and Asia are one connected continent.